Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today is June 13th, 2024, and today on our call we have the CEO, Margaret Brodie from Rubicon Organics. Rubicon trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ROMJ, and it also trades on the OTC under ROMJF. The company is currently trading at 49 cents with about 56 million shares outstanding, or about a $28 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, thanks a lot, Trevor. Yeah, great to have Margaret back. We were fortunate enough to be able to go out and do a site visit a little while ago, but it's been a little while. So good to have you in. Lots to talk about. So can't wait to get at it. So Margaret, before we sort of get into some updates and things like that, remind everybody what Rubicon's all about, and then we can jump into some questions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me back. It was a real pleasure to have you and a couple of friends of yours along to our facility in Delta, BC, right in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver, about 25 minutes from the airport, 20 minutes on a good day. And I'm going to give a quick snapshot of Rubicon in case you don't know who we are, and then where are we in our journey, and then what's the big news from us. So that's always fun to cover. I'm going to start by sharing my screen here a little bit. Hoping this works with a quick summary of who we are. We are the number one premium LP in Canada. That's actually pretty darn exciting. We, by market share, have 7.1% of the premium flower and pre-roll market. And that is all of those stats are before we've just launched into the premium vape market. We are it is very odd to say after all these years of work, we are the global leader in organic cannabis at this stage, really looking at constantly refining, improving, looking at yield. Our business starts with agriculture. We're very proud of that. And then we move really along the line into the CPG world from our brands. What we're focused on with our three flagship brands that you'll see here, Simply Bare Organic, 1964, and Wildflower. Each one of them is looking at a different consumer and is focused on satisfying different consumer needs with a brand promise. One of the things we've seen in cannabis in Canada over the last 5 years is inconsistency in what the consumer experience is when they receive a product. So whether or not you love the strain you chose, because there's lots of strains in cannabis, when you get one of our brands that there's a brand promise and a commitment of quality behind that. It's very important for us to actually build that legacy. And as we've done that, I'm gonna scoot on a little bit more in my slides here. You're going to see that not only are we the number one premium LP in Canada, those are some of our Q1 highlights, but last year we were 2023 Cannabis Company of the Year by what we would call the Oscars of Cannabis, so the KIND Awards in Canada. But we were the most recommended flower in Canada. So 2 of the 3 most recommended brands by bud tenders, and bud tenders are behind the counter. You have to ask for product in Canada behind the counter, and our brands are really starting to pull away in terms of the quality and recommendation we get behind that. And that's really important for us. So beyond that, because we have a fixed capacity at our site, we're always looking at maximizing the yield and gross profit for every product. But we're working with co-manufacturers and other businesses and contract grow partners to build our business and our brand promise without using our assets. In Canada, there's been a lot of excess supply. There's not been a ton of great growers, and what we've seen is people shift at those facilities haven't been able to get worked. Legacy market growers are coming in, and they just want to grow great weed, and they need a channel to sell it to, and we can be that channel in particular with our 1964 product. We launched edibles last year in 2023, and the biggest news from us, which we're very excited about, and these are some of the awards. You're going to see our most recommended flower and our favorite, the Canada's favorite topical, over 30% market share. And you can see some of our premium shares. But we have launched vape. It's actually just gone live into market. It's been in BC here for about 3 weeks of sales in store. Alberta got it 2 weeks ago, and Ontario stores were allowed to order it for the first time last week. So we delivered in May to the big 3 provinces that do buy vape. Unfortunately, in Quebec, vape is not yet on the menu. And we're very excited. Look, time will tell how it goes. The reviews so far have been very positive, but it is our significant growth area where we expect that, it's an $800 million category. In Canada, it's about 16% of the market, maybe 18%, somewhere in that range. In the more mature markets, California and Colorado, it's up to 30%, so 27 to 29% of market. So we believe not only is the overall cannabis market growing, we expect that the vape market is actually growing at a much higher pace because of the convenience factor and the lack of smell around it. And one thing with vape that we know is quality in, quality out. If you took a whole bunch of moldy grapes and put them through a wine process, you wouldn't get a great result. We're putting our top quality flower and resource that we grow through this process. And the early reviews are it's showing up as well as our flower. We're very excited about it. But honestly, we're not going to really know until we get the reorder and the rebuys, and probably in August we'll start to sense of how we've really done in market. You always get the first trial. So I'm an accountant by training, so I'm gonna hedge my bets, but I'm gonna bet on us today on this. We think it could grow our 23 revenue by as much, which was $40 million, by as much as 20% in 25. We're also really seeing a shift in the market where the new consumer is very vape heavy and away from flower. They're very interested in the convenience and lack of smell. Millennials who make up a really big part of the market are very interested in vape. And what we're doing is not these flavored adding in strawberry watermelon to mask the taste of cannabis. We're a company that promotes cannabis for adults. We're very interested. We're interested in building a responsible industry, and we believe that the quality and flavor around what we do really stands out. The two cultivars that we launched are Comatose, which is our number one seller, does what it says it's going to do to you. Really a strong and heavy indica, and our Blue Dream, which is a wonderful Sunshine Coast cut of the Blue Dream. It's a beautiful expression of the plant. It's my personal favorite. After all these years, it's still what I go back to. And I can say my personal experience with all of these products has been fantastic. We expect that the power out of our 1964 flower brand is going to allow us to do very well in this category. With our premium edibles, when we launched them last year under 1964, they've moved to 23% of the premium edibles category by the first quarter of this year, ending just the months of March alone being about 31% of that category. And we think we're going to take our fair share of vape with this launch. We put our best foot forward. Again, it speaks to quality, consistent understanding. We've gone with high quality inputs, high quality processes, and high quality hardware, and we're pretty excited. So that's probably the most exciting news from us. I'm going to pass along to another slide, which you can see in our presentation deck, which just talks about the growth of the vape category and where the growth it's seen over the last number of years and where we expect it to continue to go. That's probably it from me on a quick snapshot of our business. And I'll turn it over to you, Paul, to ask me some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret. Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of what I was going to ask you is really about where you guys grow from here, because you have a phenomenally well-run operations. We got to see that firsthand, but you guys are bursting at the seams, right? Yeah. So the idea, maybe talk a little bit more about the co-manufacturing component, because that's not, you don't have to outlay capital for that. You're relying on others. Let's talk about what that can do for your business.
Well, we look forward and we see cannabis moving in the way of most CPG brands. You think about Pepsi and a bottling plant, licensing arrangements around the world. Right now, we have a secret sauce, being the leaders in organic cannabis, and our Simply Bare brand. It's very important that it comes out of our facility in Delta and is run in that way. But there's opportunity to expand our 1964 brand, which really is our bread and butter. It's very widely distributed. It's a great premium price point. We expect that with the facilities that are around and the teams that, the heavy lift of the sales and marketing and the distribution and being on the ground, it's a challenge. This industry is a challenge. And since we have that pipe and we have that channel open, we really want to look at putting more biomass through it. So when I say biomass, I'm thinking edibles, which we're not food manufacturers, but we have great partners that produce fantastic products using our inputs. and those can go through and, there's unlimited capacity. I'm sure there is a limit, but the limit is pretty far away at this stage in terms of how much we could grow that business. We're seeing the same thing with vape and the opportunity to plant our genetics at other sites, both indoor and outdoor, to be able to put more biomass through. So we as a business have made the decision to focus on the Canadian market. The reason for that is we believe that the international markets, while a tremendous opportunity for cannabis, and we're seeing the world turn on to it, they're going to be hot and cold. And most markets will grow their own products. So for example, Australia currently is the largest medical cannabis market outside of North America, and it's growing rapidly. But there's also a lot of capacity and facilities turning on and a lot of energy there. And as we know, countries want to promote their own industries. So and with the stroke of a pen and regulators, you can really shut an importer in very quickly. So we believe building channels in Canada will move towards more of the multiples towards alcohol and tobacco in the long term, where people go back to the same trusted flower, the same trusted brand over time. So that's what we're looking to do. With the contract grow model, what we can do is we have the ability to say that doesn't meet our quality standard, seed our genetics, and if it doesn't meet our quality standard, we can take that flower product and pop it into vape, and we can still fill another channel. So whilst the meat and packing industry would call it whole carcass utilization, we are a little more elegant, I would say, in the cannabis world, and we call it whole plant utilization, and that's what we're doing. So when we grow a plant, we're using everything from the other than the stock, but we want to monetize everything in the wonderful plants that we do grow, and that's a big part of what we're doing, and you'll see that in our launches. We're expanding out our portfolio, and now we're looking at how do we put more through that channel.
And what do the economics look like in that model?
Well, on vape, the economics, and I'm not going to give you our exact margins on the various products. And you will notice that we're a company that doesn't comment on our price per gram, et cetera. The reason we don't do that is actually it's a matter of respect for our customers. Yes, we are very efficient growers, and we're very good and competitive against hydroponic grows. But we believe that when you're selling a premium product, you don't really want to know how much it costs somebody to actually produce it. I mean, if you look at the Scotch whiskies of the world, they have, I don't think the liquid costs as much as the bottle in a lot of cases. And I would say that in many cases that is true for us. But we are very competitive on cost, in particular in the vape category. I think the margins are very strong. With edibles, because of the regulations in Canada right now and the competition against the black market, the margin isn't as strong, but it's still over 20%. And our flower is quite strong. But, as we do use more contract manufacturing, yes, it will be more competitive on margin for us, which means we've got to focus on getting the mix right. But as you can see, as we learn and test out contract growers, that gives us the opportunity to look at whether it would make sense. A, we understand the business, the operation, and what they can do. And B, it gives us the ability to kick the tires on a number of things to see if the economics are there for us to bring something underneath our roof, or if the right thing to do is focus on what we do well and let others do that. So I think McDonald's has a great strategy. They call it a three-legged stool with suppliers, brand, and customers, and that the suppliers are a very integral and important part of their business. And I think that true partnerships come from building your businesses together, leaving a little something in there for your suppliers so that they don't go somewhere else for their business, and you can build your businesses together. And I think that's going to be the future of great Canadian cannabis companies.
Now, I mean, obviously launching new products, the vape product, how many I guess the question, how many more SKUs, like how many more new ideas, how many more markets, where do you take this?
Well, in our view, there's a lot of opportunity in Canada still. So right now we've launched vape with 2 SKUs. We expect to have at least 4 in market by the end of the year. And vape is really taking off. So we're very excited about that. We're obviously in the edibles category. We've also just launched edibles under our Simply Bare line. Because that's such a flower first brand, that is more of an enhancer. You would also have seen, and I know you mentioned it to me in the pre-chat, we launched poutine sauce, and we actually announced that. We don't announce every one of our new launches, but it was a fun way to play with things that you can do in Quebec that are, because you're only allowed to do savory edibles that speak, I spent my summers in Quebec and my winters in Quebec when I was a kid. I love it. I used to go to the Casse-Croûte. And so I have a big history with it, and it was a lot of fun to launch that. It won't be around forever. It's a limited edition to get some excitement around the brand and some interest in it. I think as we look forward, it's about getting the right portfolio mix, taking share of market. And as we do that in Canada, then we will look further afield. But remembering that so many consumers are still so, they're so nervous to go into a cannabis store, and they are reticent. Our wildflower stick, I feel like half my friends are asking me to bring them one. It's $45 item, so it's getting a little expensive. But I encourage them, walk in a store. It's not scary. It's not frightening. The bud tenders are there to help you. They're there to educate. No one wants anybody to have a bad experience or green out. And so I think there's still, with the wellness category and with new consumers, a long way to go. In Vancouver, we've seen really California sober come to this side of the country, and that's come up from California, where people have stopped drinking and they only consume weed or small edibles or vape, etc., or smoke some flower. We've seen that come to professional service circles in Vancouver with a massive change, I would say, in the last 12 months. And I think that's going to move across the country, and the comfort level is certainly changing. So I think there's actually growth in the Canadian market yet to come. I also believe there's going to be growth because the price compression and pressure of the last 18 months on the industry, where people have been selling below cost. They've been doing anything they can to turn their inventory into cash. The companies that are uneconomic are moving out of the industry, and that's creating opportunity for the companies that are going to win and survive and be here for the long term. And I think I could tell you the list of companies I think that is, and I'm sure there'll be new entrants that will come in and do great things as well. So I think our sense is this is the moment of the dip. And I don't know if you've seen the traditional technology Gardner curve that is talked about, with the hype cycle and down the other side, the valley of despair, whatever it's called, and then moving up to the real operators and stuff. Are we through that valley? I think there's some green shoots to say that we might be. I would have said last summer we certainly weren't. So I'm nervous to say that we are, but I've been speaking with some of the CEOs at the various Canadian distributors, and they've told me they're seeing companies start to take price in their products, and that's very positive news. So we do need it to be that companies can survive and it's economic. And as that occurs, I think that the industry will flourish and will be in a good.
Yeah, I mean, perfect timing. That was going to be, it's a segue into sort of the next level of questions I've got, is really the industry trends we're seeing. I mean, there was another company, I think it was yesterday or today, Indiva, that announced that they're, in bankruptcy, I guess, or filing, whatever it's called here in Canada. What else are we seeing? How much more do you think we see of that type of thing? And to what you sort of said, are other companies coming in buying those assets? Or are they just disappearing, and the sort of the capacity disappears?
A bit of both. So I think it depends on if there's real market share. And I'm not going to name names because we're in the business of focusing on us rather than on others. I would say it's a real shame what's happened with Indiva. I think there's some great people, and a lot of people have been really hard on the cannabis industry, but being an entrepreneur is not the easiest thing, and there's no crystal ball on what's going to work and not going to work. Having easy money certainly makes it easier to make big bets that can go wrong. I think that a company called SNDL has a $22 million credit into them. They'll probably be able to take over that business. That business has turned itself around and has great market share in the edibles category, a very good facility. And so I think SNDL is going to get a good asset for a steal. And it was very clever on their behalf. And it's a bit of a shame for the existing team and shareholders, but that's a new industry for you. I would say that there are 2 or 3 other public companies in very similar situations where they may say they don't have debt or their debt's controllable, but their AP is out of control. And you've got to manage your cash at all times. So thinking about what is going to consolidate and turn off, we've seen a lot of facilities actually just turn off and be mothballed that were counted in the original capacity. And that's not a bad thing. They're being repurposed. They're looking at other agriculture, et cetera. Or we're seeing, I'm aware of a company that bought an asset that was spent over 100 million was spent on it. They bought it for 12 without an instruction manual. So they basically got a Ferrari, but they didn't know how to put the gas on.
Yeah.
And they're going to figure it out because they're legacy growers and they're smart guys. And those are the kind of people that also don't necessarily want to do what we're doing in terms of brand, and that we can work with to help to grow the industry and the business. So I think it's a bit of a mix, but what we have seen is the export market has saved a lot of Canadian companies. So I think that's why we haven't seen everybody turn off in the way that we expected. Exports moved from, I think it was in 2019, it was only $8 million. And as we went through it, by 2022, it was 160 million of exports from Canada of legal weed. I'm just talking about legal weed. I'm sure the number is bigger than that.
Yeah.
But last year it was 220 million. So I think that's a route a lot of companies have gone. And I'm proud that they are knocking down that door for Canada and the world. We do have a leadership position. I hope that it gets more consistent and that it doesn't get, slapped down. I think it's something we'll explore in future. But for now, winning in Canada and growing market share with brand is, if you can win at home, and that's a great thing to do, you're building a recurring revenue stream that you can rely on. So yeah, it's an interesting time. I would say one of the things that Canada is currently ahead of the US because we have the ability to do that. We need to run at that opportunity, because when the Americans reschedule, which I do think full legalization is 3 to 5 years away at minimum, they're very competitive and strong growers. So it's going to be interesting. What we do see is on the east coast of the US in particular, where there's limited licensed states, and the vertically integrated MSOs are competing more on retail footprint and access to customer than they are on quality. That's not true of every one of them, but what we haven't seen is institutionalized high quality cannabis companies come through yet. And we're looking to be one of the first that can demonstrate that it can be done on scale with really premium quality. And I think that IP for us, we've spent the last year doing a lot of internal trials and learning and documenting. We're very focused on being able to create a methodology and a way of working that is repeatable. And I think that will have significant IP value.
Now, I remember when we were sort of last speaking, there was a lot of chatter around what might happen in the federal budget and excise tax. Clearly, they made a statement. They didn't do anything to excise tax. But what's come of that? Like, I imagine there was a lot of companies that were kind of hoping that there'd be a change, and there wasn't. So obviously, that's putting more strain. But are you seeing any follow-up sort of enforcement, or are companies kind of getting in line, or what's happening on the excise side?
Great question. Look, we know that the finance minister has been well briefed on the industry. Briefing notes have gone public. I believe that she has been briefed even in the last month on the matter. And the federal government, this was one of Justin Trudeau's promises, along with the carbon tax and a few other things, is keenly aware of the issues within the cannabis sector. If there were going to be change in excise, we would want to see it. We would likely only see it under a Liberal government. I'm not sure what the Conservatives would do, which means we've got, call it 18 months until an election. So there's a mid-year budget review in the fall. And then there's a fiscal update, as they call it. And then there's a budget again next spring, which, are two opportunities that there could be a change there. I don't believe that good companies need excise reform to be successful. And I think that hope is not a strategy. And lobbying is great, and I'm involved in it. But there's a lot of other things that the government can do to make the business thrive. And they just laid down a whole bunch of proposals actually last Friday, Cannabis Act review proposals, which include just a lot of really practical things that, we're very encouraged by them listening. It came out of the Cannabis Act review panel that was presented to government in March. We participated in a study with Health Canada through a consulting firm on linking the regulations that they have to cost. As an early G8 country and the first one to go with legal marijuana, obviously it was we're regulated like a heart medicine, rather than an agricultural product. And I would say that that is right for the psychosomatic part of cannabis, but probably not right for the agriculture part. Too many regulations slows things down, and lack of enforcement against the legacy market. Look, there's legacy market, and then there's organized crime. Legacy market is people growing small amounts of plants for their community. Personally, I think that's a really big part of culture. I would say that organized crime with online websites that can deliver to your door in the city or through Facebook Marketplace to kids within 20 minutes is something that we oppose strongly. And Ontario, in their recent budget, just announced not only did they make $600 million from cannabis, about $300 million from the Ontario Cannabis Store, which is the liquor and cannabis distribution, and $300 million from the excise tax that they received. But they've taken $31 million of that $600 million, and they're going to use it to tackle the black market. And we're really happy to hear that, because it's the organized crime part of it that does need to be cracked down on. Yeah.
Gotcha. I want to remind everybody that's listening, if you've got a question you'd like me to ask Margaret, please use the chat function, and of course we'll ask the question. I want to go back into the trends a little bit, but before that, just as far as the business right now, I mean, when we were there, we saw a really well-run business. But the challenges, what challenges are you facing right now in sort of continuing to move the business forward?
Well, firstly, thank you for saying that, because it's been a journey, and we're certainly not perfect, and we're working to get better every day. And the story I tell our people is, I had a dad who said to me, "What happened to the other 2%?" And we are on what we call the endless pursuit. You can't do everything at once, but do one thing after the other and do it well and move forward. And I think that's what we're looking to do to improve every day. This is a new industry, but agriculture isn't new. In terms of us getting better and what's next, vape is critically important, and getting more biomass. So working with partners and making sure that we have product available to sell in the right location at the right time for the right customer is our focus. The rest of this year for us is making sure we've got that vape seeded across the country in the right way. We're telling the right story. We get the right mix of our flower and product. And frankly, in the first quarter of this year, we had a lot of innovation launch and new products launched that were at a slightly lower margin, and that hit us. We've got to get that focus back to flower and vape, and make sure that we're telling the right story in our channels. And we worked very hard, and it takes a minute to see that in the results, but we believe we're back on the right track. And then it's refinancing our debt. So we have a great credit partner right now who's been with us for about 5 years. Our debt is at 7.5% interest. We've only had to pay, it's been hedged, it's in US dollars of $8 million. It's due December 31. We are working very hard to get it refinanced. There's lots of opportunity. We have backups on backups, because we want to make sure we keep the business in a good spot, and we like to keep our cash balance at a certain level as well. But we are really looking to try and get in place some industry leading debt. And demonstrate that there are good investable companies that can get interest rates around that, around prime. And that's a great place to be, to set ourselves up for the next 5 years. And that's really the biggest thing. Internally, we're putting an ERP system in place. Not only are we launching projects and doing a ton of R&D and all the things, the secret sauce that I can't necessarily tell you about, which obviously makes it more exciting. Putting in place a system so that we can get bigger is very important. Right now, we've been running the business. We waited to do a big IT system and an ERP system until we got to a more steady state in the business, because we've seen a lot of cannabis companies have to do it, but the project budgets have doubled, etc. So that'll be in our results, about $1 million this year, over the course of the year. But what that will mean is we can put more throughput into our facility and through our business, and that's, you have years that are foundational years of setting things up. So launching products like vape, making sure that the right SKU, the right hardware, the right, they're hitting the consumer, getting your business ready, getting your people ready, making sure we're in a great position. Because, well, one thing we do know is that this industry is growing, and pun intended, and we are there to be part of it and build the Canadian landscape and be a global leader. So I think we're definitely one to watch, and I think our profitability over the course of the next 2 years will reflect that, and we're excited about that.
Perfect. Okay, a couple more questions, and we're going to launch into some of the listeners' questions. Really around sort of the stock. First off, by the way, congratulations. There's at least one or maybe even two ETFs that picked you up now, which I find interesting, right? Certainly a couple years ago, there was a lot of excitement around investing in the space, but now, it's kind of gone away. But to see this, I think, congratulations on that.
Thank
But
you.
what's been the environment or attitude of investors that you're talking to about the space right now and about the company?
I would say a couple of things. One is existing investors, we tend to have low liquidity because they're not happy with the share price, and that's fair, and I am included in that. So my cost base is above $2, and we're trading today. I don't know where we actually closed because I was preparing for this, but presumably around 50 cents. I believe the value of our company is more than that. We do also have about a number of, sorry, the comments pop up and they slightly distract me. I should turn them off. So look, we want to build that up, but what we see is a lack of buy and a lack of sell. So when we do have one seller out there, if somebody comes out and sells, it can really push the stock down very quickly, especially with an open sell order without buyers out there. And we've seen, and I was just presenting to our board a couple of weeks ago, the real separation between the very large caps in tech and this just small caps and micro caps trading in the last couple of years has just, the gap has opened up, and it's a chasm now, I would say. But in that is where opportunities are. So for us, I think people that are looking at value investing can look at us and say, we are a business that is profitable in a growing sector, who is building international IP, IP that will be wanted internationally, where many countries are turning on. So if we look at the time horizon of 3 to 5 years, I think it's very exciting for a company like ours, and we're getting more and more established and making sure, as best we can, that we are documenting and understanding and capturing all the learnings so that we can over-index. So the answer would be, one, small caps are in a tough spot, hard to get any attention and any interest. But two, I would say that value investors in the moments will come. We do need to see more companies that aren't strong fall away so that the stronger companies, right now we're a little bit of a salmon swimming upstream, where you've got a lot of companies in really tough financial shape, in particular with what's happened in Canada and a number of the decisions made and use of capital, et cetera. So we need to weather that. And on the other side of this, I think is going to be a good position where we start to trade more akin to an alcohol multiple or tobacco multiple or something like that. But that's probably a good couple of years away. And I think I would say that the YOLO investment was incredibly well timed for them to get in, because they got in around 34, 35 cents, which was our lowest trading ever. The guys over at Advisor Shares are very shrewd, and I think they're timing to come in. And look, I would love to see the ETFs grow and fund more as we see more announcements out of both the US and Canada, because that fund holds both of those. They get funded, we'll be able to ride the wave along with that, and that would be very important to us.
Yeah. Now, I also noticed you have at least one firm covering you, Haywood, I believe. Is there anybody else that covers you right now?
No, there's not. We've been, a lot of the banks have dropped coverage in the space because they haven't had the they haven't had the deal flow.
Right.
And we're a smaller company, so I'm a pretty straight shooter, and we don't have any paid research. Also, at a time like this when there isn't people watching the industry, keep your head down and operate and focus. And do what you can do that's going to be successful. Control the controllables. We could spend $500,000 a quarter on IR, but I don't believe, other than temporarily us going in and buying the stock and spending money, we're adding value for people. So we're looking to build something that adds value. It's very, very frustrating after all this work. And I mean, we've all seen this with many companies. But if you followed the mining sector, you know that there's waves, and I think the cannabis sector is going to have the same for the time being. But I do believe there will be another wave coming. It's just a matter of timing it right. And the winners are really starting to emerge, who they're going to be. I would say we all know each other. I'm not going to name them because I'm not going to give them that. But I know who they are. I have tremendous respect for a number of companies out there, and we're all looking to work together as well because we see the opportunity to build the sector.
No, I would agree with you in a lot of things. What appeals to us right now is we can see a lot of mispriced assets in the space, and consolidation that's going to benefit the stronger. It's, that cycle you talked about is very, very evident to us for sure.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I don't ask, but are you guys, I know we talked about the lists a little bit in the past, but are you one of the potential buyers of some of these assets that are out there? Are you looking?
I would say that I'd like to get my debt sorted
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that our balance sheet is great, and make sure that Vape is on very solid footing. I think that we will be opportunistic with the right assets and the right teams at the right time. I think that I wouldn't be so far as to say we are actively looking. I would say that we always look at every opportunity that comes across our desk. But keeping our business and our balance sheet in as strong a position as possible is critical. So I wouldn't imagine us doing anything with a cash deal unless we had ability to get some cash in.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think there's some businesses out there, in particular some private businesses, that are under the radar that could come into our business and add real value and accretion in the short term. By short term, I mean 6 to 12 months. That would be transformative to us. But whether you can get something done or not, that always depends on the counterparty. And contract grow and contract manufacturing gives us the ability to understand the ins and outs of those businesses. I wouldn't imagine that we'd be looking at someone who wasn't already working with us. So we are intentionally working with people that we think would be good partners to us.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I'm going to give you one more question before I jump into the listener questions. If you could describe, like, what's your weakest part of the business, or what can you improve the most? And then on the flip side, what's your greatest strength? I think I know what your greatest strength is, but I'd love to hear it from you.
Well, I'm going to start with weakness, and I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to talk while I think about what my clever answer would be. I think our greatest weakness, I would say, in the last year, our share price, but I'm going to put that to the side. So that's I can't control that.
Yeah.
I would say that getting the right number, really figuring out some of the stuff on cultivation that we've been working on, and I know that we're actually the best in the world at this organic cultivation on scale, but I think we can do better, and I think we're figuring things out. So it's not only our biggest weakness, but our biggest strength. And part of that comes into my desire to win. I was a competitive grower.
But Margaret, on that, like, you guys are the best at it. Like,
I know, but we can be better.
What is that? What does better mean? Like, more.
To have more consistent quality.
Okay.
I think our quality can get better. I think our yields can get better in terms of how much we produce. And I think in doing so, we'll see that right in our gross profit fast, because we'll have more volume available to sell. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we've had as a business, because it links into cultivation, is why do some genetics and strains, like our Comatose, went crazy with the market, but our Super Lemon Haze didn't? Why not? We thought Super Lemon Haze, based on its profile and all the indicators in the market and the research we did with consumers, with bud tenders, with the provinces, it didn't hit. So we had to build up the biomass before a launch, and you can't always understand. Even if we do tasting panels and R&D and all the things, we think it's going to be a winner and it's not, and that is a challenge. And that links into cultivation, because we have to make calls 6 to 9 months in advance on trialing products, on getting them into market, on cultivating them, and then launching them. Our Fruit Loops is doing incredibly well. We're very excited about it under Simply Bare, but our Death Bubba did okay, but didn't crush what we thought it was going to be the next Comatose. So why is that? It's consumer tastes, flavors, is the way we seed it in market. It's all starts with the quality of the flower, and we think it's wonderful, but sometimes consumers just, why does the pale pink t-shirt become the trend and the green one doesn't? Why are people wearing socks above their ankles now? And these are trends, right? And being able to be a trend spotter, getting those hero SKUs is not always easy. So I think that's where if we could crack that, our numbers would go up. Full stop, right?
In fine shape, exactly.
Yeah. So and then our biggest strength, I think it's our people. We've worked very, very hard to transform the business from sort of the growth early days to an environment that is one of respect for our competitors, our customers, and everything, every touch point with our company needs to be with quality. When we say the word quality, and I talk about quality and cultivation and of our product, every interaction you have with Rubicon needs to be one of quality, whether it's delivering a package or talking to a customer or showing up in store or me speaking with you. We're a premium company and we stand for that.
I have to state this, like with the site visit we did, I mean, that you feel that, like you
Oh,
really see it. I
yes.
have to commend you guys for that approach and certainly living what you guys are saying. Okay, so now I am going to take some comments and questions finally from the listeners, but it starts with a good one. It says, Deep Patel says, congratulations for being nominated as EY Entrepreneur of the Year.
You.
2024 finalist right now in the Pacific. And he says that you have his vote. So
I don't know how that works. Thank you. That's very kind. It was actually a real surprise. I got a call from Ernst & Young in Toronto and they said, we're putting you forward. And you have these moments of, but it's not just me, like the team said, no, this is for the company, you go do this. So we actually went last night to a finalist reception, which was neat, but they didn't prep me in advance that I would need to say some words. And so, and sitting there with all these impressive people thinking, God, oh God, they're doing this and they're doing this. But look, we're building an industry. There are many days where I think I should have taken the pretty office job with less risk and all the things, but we employ 185 people very proudly. And we are building what I think could be, a next great industry for Canada over index in the world. We're proud of BC Bud, and we want to see British Columbia producers and Canadian producers do well because it's helpful for us.
Yeah, I got to mention. So there was a book I read a little while ago called "The Hard Thing About Hard Things." I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but great book. It's basically about innovators, businesses that are kind of new, and the chaos that I'm sure you guys have to face in a new industry, a new sort of company. So hats off to anybody that survives in your position. So
there are
good on
days
you.
where you wonder. I remember coming out of every Tuesday I'm in the facility and I like to walk the facility, and I came out and I went to a school theater production and all I could think was, I'm the mom who smells like weed. Sitting in here, people are probably thinking it's the guy with the goatee next to me, but it's me. So you kind of I think we have to remember that this is an adult choice. It's something to be very proud of, and it's something to be, it makes people feel good. And this is a little bit of fun. I sat back with our leadership team last week. I was just giving them an update after some important visits and our board meeting. And I said, guys, we set out a strategy in January in our offsite, and look at all the things we've achieved. Let's just take a minute to sit back and go, wow, we actually did the things we said we were going to do, and they've worked. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
That's it's one of the benefits of a little bit of success in business for sure. Okay, so again from Deep Patel, he says, is there something you can share in terms of why one big shareholder wanted out, or anything you can share on that?
Well, we've had one was a good couple of years ago where we had an investment from the Lassonde family, and I think they weren't happy with it. And I think it was a fair challenge. The cannabis stocks they had bought on the up, and look, we've got a number of shareholders that have been in for a long time. I think, unfortunately, where prices of cannabis, were when we were planning the business of and where the country planned it, Canada planned the business for, and the tax basis was over $10 a gram. The average in Canada now to sell to the wholesaler is about $3.20 or something like that. And don't quote me on that. It's under $4. So really the economics are very different. And so that's unfortunate. And we've seen, because of what has happened across the industry, and you can see it in our share price, we're trading very low and very low multiples. So I think, that's the root of a lot of it. And there was a sale recently. One of our longtime shareholders sold 1 million shares. I'm hoping he comes back in. I think he might. I know we had a large gain from some gold stocks, so it was an opportunity to offset that, and that's all I'll say. But I can't speak to people's decisions, and you have someone who could be going through family stuff, or I remember back in the day, my dad was on a board and he sold because he was making an investment in a kitchen renovation, and he got raked over the coals for it. And I thought, well, sometimes you got to take money off the table, right? So we can't control that. We can just be focused on our business, and that's my responsibility. So
Yeah, no, fair comment for sure. Okay, so Mark Merritt says, do you have any plans for other vape formats this year?
great question. Hi, Mark. I didn't know you were listening. And Mark is a very shrewd guy in this
He
space,
is.
and a former analyst himself, or current
Yeah.
analyst, I guess.
Yeah.
We are looking at expanding the current range. I can tell you that I'm very, we find we get followed a lot with what we do in our innovation. So we don't like to say what we're planning to launch. But obviously we've seen in the US a huge growth in the disposable vape market. I have some reticence around that personally because of the amount of packaging waste and various things like that. But consumers are really moving to convenience. And that is massive within the pre-roll format and within vape. So I do believe that you'll see us evolve through that category, but nothing announced at this stage. So watch and see. There's also been a lot of talk of, will Canada go to larger format in edibles? And what we've seen in the regulations last week was a couple of things that could be interesting, or the proposed regulations for comment, I should say, they are not regulation yet, is the change to the packaging rules. So which would allow not only windows so that you can see through flower and some translucent packaging, which will be interesting to see how that rolls out, and all the consumables people have on site and have pre-ordered. What do you write off versus what's right to sell? But also that edibles will be allowed to be packaged, although separately, in larger than 10 milligram packaging. So right now you're only allowed to sell, and I think you've got one there, so I'm going to get you to hold it up. You're only allowed to sell
I
it.
got two here.
Yeah, you can only sell.
One's slightly opened.
Yes, that's actually my favorite one too, the pink lemonade.
Which one?
I
The
think
pink one. Yeah.
that's why I got it to you. You can only sell them in those individual units of 10 milligrams. So what they're saying is you could have that unit, but how do you package them so you could have more than 10 milligrams? But when you open each individual section, it's 10 milligrams. I think that's going to be quite transformative for cannabis, and we're very excited about that. So we're really pleased with what the government's done. Things like that will actually move the industry forward quite a bit.
Awesome. We have another question from Mark. Also, can you expand at all on your comments about the potential number and timing of new 510 SKUs?
I can. I believe that there is one. I'd have to triple confirm, and Mark, I can be more specific. Certainly by the end of the year, we're going to have over 4. I can't remember which months they're launching. I think there's a third one launching early in the third quarter, but let me confirm and get back to you. And I will speak with our marketing team, but I know by the end of the year, it should be at least 4 in market now. Yeah.
And remind me again, which provinces are you in? Obviously, BC, Ontario, Quebec, I know.
Yes, but Quebec doesn't sell vape.
That's right.
It has been now hinted at, and we were aware of this, but it wasn't in the public domain, that Quebec is exploring launching vape, because it turns out the black market is doing it, and people are traveling to Ontario and New Brunswick to buy vape. Shocker. So they are exploring that. I'm actually meeting on Monday with the CEO of the SQDC, which is the Quebec Authority. I'm going to be practicing and listening to TV and podcasts in French in preparation. Always my nervous BC French. But I think that could potentially, if they do decide to go that route, be a tremendous opportunity for companies like ours who already have a relationship with the province of Quebec.
Right.
Until that's confirmed, it's speculation. But we are bullish on that opportunity as well. I am of the view, and Mark probably knows this of me, that I would like to make sure something is locked and loaded and confirmed, rather than sending it out on hype. I want to make sure I know I'm giving you the exact information and telling you when you're going to be able to measure our success on it. And I would say with vape, by the end of July, we'll be able to answer that. We'll have our AGM at the end of July. It's scheduled for July 31st. And then our second quarter results are coming out mid-August. That will be a very good indicator of where the business is. And it's, I think, I'm feeling confident on us delivering on that.
So I remembered a question I was going to ask, and it's, we've spoken to a number of different cannabis companies, and what we are hearing is a lot of companies are actually, they've got such working capital constraints that they can't even properly get product to market. Is
Not a problem for us at this stage.
Yeah, I know it's not
For
for
our
you,
vape-
but
Yeah,
is that kind of, are you hearing the same thing out in the industry?
we are, and we're hearing it all over the place, right? I mean, it's why we are so focused on cash. And we're so focused on our debt is it is a priority. And I told our CFO at the beginning of the year, the debt refinancing is more important than our ERP project, because we like to keep dry powder with us. Because, when we decided to launch Vape, from a working capital perspective, we're probably putting out $1 million. And we want to be able to do it properly. We want to launch it thoughtfully, and seed it in the right way and be successful with it. So we have the dry powder with which to do that. And we're not going to see the other side of that working capital cycle. Really, it's not going to be seen in our results until I think our cash balance, et cetera, will be very understandable and not frightening at June 30th. But you're going to start to see the momentum from that investment in the second half of the year, and we're excited about that.
I mean, do you ever entertain the idea of raising equity to either take advantage of opportunities or to deal with any?
We don't need to. So we're, I think it would be opportunistic to what we have in our plans. And again, I still think one of the reasons we haven't had as much consolidation in the industry as a lot of people expected is because people are still tied to former valuations. And I think, look, as a public company, our valuation is sitting right out there. I don't think you can get a deal done at those prices. But we're realistic, because I would rather have a piece of a bigger pie that exists than a piece of nothing.
100%
And I don't
nothing,
think a lot of people understand that.
Mhm.
And we're also willing to be pretty scrappy and do what we need to do. And if that means, we don't work with EAs. I'm sitting on probably a broken chair with my 5-year-old IKEA simple desk, which is the plain one with the 2 legs on either side with the clapboard. I mean, I think let's put our money into our quality and into our people and our products. And as you saw when you came out to our site yourself, we work out of trailers because we didn't build the $5 million building that would be the office building on site. And I think one of the issues a lot of people have is they put a lot of capital into sites, and so they feel they need to get that capital back, but the capital's not worth that. And I think that's the nut of the problem. Until people let that go, we've also seen a lot of entrepreneurs just be incredibly stressed, and I can imagine the health impacts of that. Actually going through the CCAA and moving forward with your life at a certain point, or shutting your facility down, is sometimes the right thing to do. So
yeah. Okay, a couple more questions. This from Russell. It's a health question. Does vaping weed versus vaping tobacco differ from a health perspective?
I don't think we fully know the answer to that, but we do know is that people that are consuming tobacco and nicotine, the addiction level is very high, and they tend to consume a lot. So they're pulling on it all day because of the hit that you're getting from nicotine. People tend to vape, and they might have 1 or 2, maybe 5 puffs. It's quite a different proposition in terms of use case. We also, certainly in Rubicon's case, we're only putting cannabis in our vapes. So you're not getting the other additives that tobacco has. So without being detailed on what other people are putting in their vapes, I believe that it's probably not as bad. But let's be real, anything that you're combusting and inhaling is an adult choice. We are not putting other things into our products and cutting other things into them. A lot of people are adding botanical terpenes and various other additives. I firmly disagree with it. I don't think it's good. And I think that's where I don't believe that Health Canada has done enough work on it. And I think in tobacco, there's a lot of that happening. I know what we're putting in our products, but I think that anything that you're inhaling, it's no different than an alcohol choice or various other things we do, right? So
in moderation. Right?
Yeah. But also moderation in moderation sometimes. Sometimes we have a little fun.
Absolutely. Exactly. Okay, so well, a comment from Deep. He says, I see every single day people smoking weed vape in Montreal. It's surprising it's not already legal there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And well, that's why I
no
think
shortage of demand. Yeah, no
yeah, I
shortage
think
of
the
demand.
government's got to consider it. And they have a cap in general on 30% THC, and vapes tend, because a vape is condensing it, it tends to have a higher THC. That's a
Okay.
question we've got to answer if they do launch it. Like, how would we do that? You know, we're not people that
Mhm.
want to cut things into, we are cannabis for people that love weed and cannabis and the flavors around it and the impact.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I think that's quite different than nicotine. And, you know, personally, I'm quite against adding flavors. And as a business, we're against adding flavors into cannabis products because we think that it masks the flavor. A lot of products out there really look like they appeal to children, and I would say that you know, when you're doing strawberry razzleberry, or you know, having something in bubble letters on a bright yellow package, a child looks like they're going to want to pick that up. We expect that Health Canada in the next 2 weeks could be releasing a major ban on flavored tobacco vape. Um, and that is because they have moved it out of their forward regulatory statement. This is very available publicly. And they have said that they would make an announcement about banning vape by the spring of 2024. The spring, technically, I ended up looking this up because I was very curious. Um, the spring technically ends. The National Research Council says it ends on the summer solstice, which would be the 20th and the 22nd of June. So we could have a major vape announcement in the next week in Canada. We may not. I don't know. We're not in Health Canada. The question would be, will that apply across to cannabis as well? They have left the door open. They have already gazetted it from the perspective of regulation and consulted the public on it. So the door is open if they wanted to ban flavorings in vape. And I think in that situation, we'd be in a very good spot given the flavor and quality of what we do. But I think it's inevitable that flavors will be coming out of vape. I think Health Canada takes a very serious view, and Canada has been a leader on tobacco and inhaled product regulation. I think the health minister of Canada, the current minister, comes from the Heart and Stroke Foundation, where he was on the file for youth. And given, I was getting texts last night from my sister who was at a parent advisory council meeting, and they were talking about the influence of vape. So I think that and the flavors, right? And they're just addicting a whole new generation. So I think there's some major changes that will come, and I think it will come under this government.
Gotcha. Margaret, what should we sort of watch out for? What do you think are the important metrics or maybe in catalysts that we should pay attention to here in the next
For Rubicon
near
or for the
future?
industry?
You know, for both, but more predominantly for Rubicon. Yeah.
I think our Q2 results are going to be indicative of the next trend and the success of vape. And we'll be announcing that mid-August. I think we are going to see, you know, with the Indiva news and the switch over to Sundial, that's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the edibles category. But I think as companies continue to flounder and price starts to come up, I think we're in a very good position as we launch forward. I would look for two things. So ergo, our results on vape and how we're positioned in market share, and the refinancing of our debt. Those are two significant moves that you should see from us in the second half of the year. And I'll be excited to come back and share the news. Everything's preliminary. You always get the first opportunity with vape. Let's see how the reorders and reviews are, because that's what's important. And then in the industry, I actually think it's when prices start to come back up, and I'll be curious to see if we continue to see that, and we continue to see enforcement by the CRA on shutting down companies that aren't paying their excise tax. Remembering that the excise tax is paid by the provinces directly to the companies, and the companies have to pay it to the federal government. Over 70% of companies have not been remitting to the federal government. As a result, they've been able to use that working capital. When the feds clamp down on that, it really tightens the noose. And that's where we've seen a lot of price compression. So I think as the internet, as a lot of people have used the international markets to sell their product, they've been able to avoid that noose, and I think that's great for Canada. But I'd like to see I'd like to see prices come back up and stabilize a little bit, and I think we're going to see that in the industry in the next 12 months.
Yep, I tend to agree. Margaret, lastly, is there anything we missed, or is there a key message you want to make sure everybody walks away with today?
I just think the key thing is Valuations are incredibly cheap for the good companies right now. There are a number of them. The winners are clearly emerging. Just watch us. We're focused on operating right now, and I think, somebody said it very well on Twitter recently. It was somebody out of the US, and they said, yes, it's quiet with the stocks and various things, looking at the MSOs, but this is when real businesses are being built.
Yeah.
Is in
Yeah.
these lulls. The capital's there. If you haven't figured out how to get through from the tough times, you don't stand a chance. And I think that I think it's pretty exciting how what's emerging here.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think this is where the strong survive, or what's the old Warren Buffett adage? You find out pretty quickly who's swimming naked when the tide goes out, right? Yeah.
Oh dear, I don't really want to imagine Warren Buffett doing that, but I'll take it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm going to have a plug, because we have a really I would encourage people to try our vape. I'm loving the Blue Dream one, so I recommend it heartily. But obviously it's up to your choice. But we also have just launched a pot brownie, and it's here in BC. I was nipped over to the store right across the street from our office, and unfortunately they're being delivered tomorrow. But I've heard they're absolutely fantastic from an experience perspective. So go out, try our products, and have a little fun. Remember that this is supposed to be fun or relaxing, or all the things.
Yeah. And those in Quebec can try the poutine.
Poutine's across the country now, but it's only
it's across the country.
You can
Even
get
better.
it. I had it a few weeks ago. Our chief commercial officer and I ordered some French fries and cracked it open one night, and had a lot of fun.
I think that's awesome.
Enjoy.
That's awesome. Yeah, perfect. All right, we've been speaking with Margaret Brodie, CEO of Rubicon Organics, our symbol ROMJ on the Venture Exchange. Margaret, it's always fun when we get a chance to talk, so I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, let's do a catch up after our Q2, and hopefully I have some good news to share.
Absolutely will.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you. Bye now.